Hey everybody, let's talk about exposition position. If you have a game with a plot, you've got exposition, there's no way around it. But when do you have exposition? When do you tell the player the things the player needs to know? Well, I've always said something like, oh, if the player doesn't need to know yet, then don't tell him yet. But when does the player have to know? You're in control of everything. You control the plot and the levels and the progression. You decide when the player has to know. So, well, how do you answer that question, right? It's super loose and unformed and... Let me teach you a concrete way to think about it. I'm not going to say this is a good way to think about it. I'm just saying that it's a way that can help you get you on your feet if you're kind of lost in a maze of what should happen when. Exposition, the role of exposition, is to make the player want to play the next part of the game. So the only time that you should ever tell the player something is when it's going to make them want to play the very next part of the game. It's that simple. But let's go ahead and make it a little more complicated because you want it to be a little more structural than that, have a little bit more bite. So let's say that if there is something that you have to tell the player, exposition, it doesn't really matter what kind. There's just something the player is going to have to be told. There are two things you can do with that. You can either tell the player or you can build it up. If you tell the player, it's because the next part of the game is more interesting with them knowing this. They want to play the next part of the game now that they know this thing. Otherwise, make it more important. Give you an example. The player character is searching for something. We don't know what the player character is searching for, but they're searching. The game world is full of people that might know something, but they're weird and they got wiggly noodle arms. So we're not asking them specific questions. We're not revealing what we're searching for. We're trying to kind of get information out of them, figure out what's going on, all that stuff. When do we tell the player what we're searching for? Let's say we're searching for our brother. When do we tell the player that we're searching for our brother? We tell the player when it makes them want to play the next part of the game. Otherwise, we make it more important, but don't tell them. Let's say that the first level is searching through an office building for our brother. Will this be more interesting if we know that it's for our brother? Not really. I mean, it's just an office building. Our brother doesn't have any emotional connection to an office building. So we could be searching for a pair of shoes or a key card, whatever, right? All we need to do in this case is we'll hold off. We'll tell them later. For now, we'll build it up. We'll make it really clear that it's super important that we find whatever we're searching for, and we'll search for it in kind of weird ways. And then, at the end of the level, the garage door opens and out drives a van. Screech, zoom. And we see the driver. And our assistant is like, that van is going awfully fast. I don't think we want to let that go. We better call the cops and have them run that plate. And we're like, no, you idiot. We're not going to be running that plate. We're going to be chasing after him in our motorcycles because that guy, he's my brother. Oh my gosh. And I mean, sure, I'm hamming it up because why not? But the point here is that now the player is like, oh, I want to know what's going on. Let's chase that car. Let's get our brother. We haven't revealed why we're searching for our brother. We haven't revealed why he might be driving away. Those are things that'll need exposition later. And until they're needed, we'll build that up as well. Why is our brother running away? Boss, why is your brother running away? Let's not talk about that right now. All you have to know is that I have to catch him at all costs. Build it up. This is a very pulpy way to do things, and it can backfire because it's possible to build something up to the point where it falls flat. Like, oh, we have to catch him because, something boring. But in the most basic of terms, this is a really easy way to think about how your story is structured. Every beat, every bit of exposition that you have is simply to make the player interested in the very next part of the game. And if it's not ready yet, if this isn't needed for the next part of the game, build it up. This method of thinking is a really easy way to start getting into the structure of your story. Like, what are your secrets? You got to tell the player this and this and this and this and this. And then, of course, if you got to tell the player that, then you got to tell them this and then this, right? And you can start to think about how this fits together. Oh, we need this for the reactor level, which will probably be around here. It might be down here, though we'll have to think about it for some. So we'll tell the player here, and until then we'll build it up. Oh, this would be good right at the beginning. This will really help us connect to the ferry ride in the first level. And this is really useful down here, but before we can actually use it down there, we actually need to use it up here. So then we'll have to come up with a twist that makes it fresh again. And using this, you can start to sort out how your story is going to feel and arrange the pieces. Now, I know a lot of people think about things like, oh, first act, second act, third act. That's not quite as important in a video game. And it's also something that you can do by rearranging these facts. This is something that is like an alternate approach to that, and it's an easy way to start thinking about how your story is going to unfold. And it's also an easy way to do the opposite and start thinking about, oh, well, these pieces of exposition aren't very well thought out. Like, I should combine 1 and 2 into, 1A and 1B by centralizing them and making them about the same emotional thing, and then B is just a twist on the end of A. And that'll really strengthen this story. This kind of structural thinking is pretty common when you're writing, screenplays or books, but for indie games, sometimes this gets left behind and you don't really think about it enough. So just if you're having a little bit of trouble writing your story, maybe think of exposition like this. That's it. Have a good one.